I never thought my life would unravel because of someone I trusted like a brother. My name is Daniel Carter, 38 years old, born and raised in Chicago. I've always been the type who values loyalty above everything else. Maybe that's why it cuts so deep, because the betrayal came from Tyler, my best friend since college. My father, Richard Carter, passed away unexpectedly last year. He was a respected real estate investor, and though he wasn't the most emotionally expressive man, he was always fair. After the funeral, I assumed things would be handled according to his will. We had talked before, and he promised everything would be split cleanly. A portion to me, a portion to charity, and a small share to his assistant, just out of gratitude. But weeks passed, then months, and I heard nothing. Lawyers told me they hadn't received any official will. That made no sense. My father was obsessive about documentation. Something wasn't right. Then, one rainy Friday night, I got a strange email. "Dan, I think something's going on with your dad's estate. You need to look into Tyler. Anonymous." At first, I brushed it off, but my instincts wouldn't let it go. Tyler had been unusually distant since the funeral. He'd told me he was too busy to meet, traveling constantly for work. But something didn't add up, and I was done ignoring the signs. The next morning, I drove to my father's old office building. Most of it had been cleared out, but his assistant, Carol, still worked part-time handling leftover documents. She was in her 60s, loyal to a fault, and had worked for my dad for over 20 years. When I asked her about the will, she looked confused. "Your father gave me a sealed envelope the week before he passed," she said. "He told me to hand it to his lawyer directly if anything happened to him. But according to the lawyer, he never received anything." Carol's eyes widened. "Then where the hell did it go?" I asked if she still had any of my father's old records, emails, call logs, anything. She hesitated, then pointed to a locked filing cabinet in the back. "That's all I've got, but I shouldn't even be showing you this without legal clearance." I opened the cabinet. Inside were dozens of neatly labeled folders and USB drives. One of the flash drives caught my attention. It had a sticky note on it. "Tyler, do not trust him." My blood ran cold. Back in my apartment, I plugged in the flash drive. There were a series of audio recordings and a few emails, all involving Tyler and my father. The first recording was dated 3 months before my father passed away. Tyler's voice was unmistakable. "He's getting old, man. He barely checks the accounts anymore. Once we consolidate the transfers, we can route it through the LLC, and he'll never notice." Then came my father's voice, calm but stern. "Tyler, if I ever catch you skimming off our investments again, you're out. No second chances." My hands were shaking. This wasn't just betrayal. This was planned theft. Tyler had been siphoning money and lying about it for months, maybe years. But it wasn't just money. One email thread showed a back and forth between Tyler and a contact named A.R. They were talking about making my dad look incompetent, erratic decisions, forgetting to file taxes, even forging reports. They were building a case that he was no longer fit to run the business. I suddenly remembered the board vote 2 months before Dad's death. The one where Tyler was voted in as acting CEO. My father had been pushed out of his own company by someone he treated like a second son. And that sealed envelope, it had likely been intercepted before it ever reached the lawyer. I sat back, heart pounding. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a premeditated takeover, and Tyler had won. For now. But I wasn't going to confront him yet. No, I needed to be smarter than that. I needed to be silent and start planning. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing my dad's voice in the recording, not angry, just disappointed. I owed him more than grief. I owed him justice. So I started digging. First, I made copies of the flash drive. One went into a safety deposit box, another stayed with me. Then I began compiling everything. Emails, audio clips, discrepancies in financial reports. I even hired a private investigator, someone discreet, former FBI, who owed a favor to a friend of mine. I didn't tell him the full story, just that I needed proof of corporate fraud involving Tyler Banks. Within 2 weeks, he gave me more than I expected. Tyler had been transferring company funds into offshore accounts under a shell corporation tied to a woman named Alexis Rowe. The same AR from the emails. Turns out, she wasn't just a business contact. She was Tyler's ex, and apparently still a willing partner in crime. Together, they drained nearly $3.2 million from my father's company since the year before his death. And it didn't stop there. My investigator also discovered that Tyler had secretly changed several of the company's legal documents after my dad's passing, including the will that would have named me co-owner. But here was the twist. The original will had never been destroyed. It had been scanned and backed up by my dad's longtime attorney, a man who'd recently retired but still answered my call. "I always knew your father didn't trust Tyler fully," the lawyer told me. "That's why he gave me a sealed copy. I still have it." It was like the pieces were falling into place. I had everything I needed. All that was left was how to use it. And I already knew when. The next shareholder meeting, where Tyler planned to announce a new merger, one that would give him full control of the company permanently. He wanted a show. Fine, he'd get one. The big day had finally arrived. It was the company's annual general meeting. Tyler, as usual, was dressed immaculately, flashing his rehearsed smile. The conference hall was packed. Shareholders, advisors, journalists. Everyone was there. Tyler believed he was in full control. "Today, we take a historic step for our company's future," he began confidently at the podium. "This merger won't just boost profitability. It will expand our vision." He was so sure of himself, he didn't even notice me sitting quietly in the back row. Halfway through his presentation, I gave a subtle nod to the tech team. Suddenly, the screen went black. Instead of his PowerPoint, another file began to display. Tyler's face turned pale, because right there on the big screen was a scanned copy of my father's original will. "We'll be taking a brief pause in Mr. Banks's presentation," I said as I stood up, voice steady, "because there are some documents that the shareholders deserve to see." A murmur rippled through the room. Tyler tried to walk toward me, but 2 security guards gently held him back. The floor was mine now. I took the microphone and began, slowly. "This document clearly states that my late father left me 50% ownership of this company, and yet, despite this will, I've been stripped of my rightful place here. Why?" Then I held up a flash drive and played the audio files. Tyler's voice came through loud and clear, confessing to manipulating my father, altering the will after his death, plotting behind his back. The entire room froze. Some shareholders shook their heads in disbelief. A woman covered her mouth. A few journalists immediately started typing on their phones. Tyler looked like a ghost. "And here are the documents," I continued as the second screen lit up. "Offshore accounts, illegal wire transfers, forged internal files, all signed by him." Tyler tried to yell something. I raised my voice over him. "I hereby call for an immediate vote to suspend Tyler Banks from all executive duties, and the evidence has already been handed over to the proper authorities for federal investigation." Applause erupted in the room. Years of buried truth were finally rising to the surface. Tyler was escorted out of the building that same day. The board didn't even wait until the end of the meeting. News of the scandal spread like wildfire. Articles, social media, even business podcasts were dissecting what had happened. The company's stock dropped briefly, but thanks to the shareholders' confidence in new leadership, it quickly stabilized. I wasn't interested in just revenge anymore. I wanted to rebuild what my father had dreamed of. I spent weeks personally meeting with department heads, restructuring teams, canceling shady contracts Tyler had signed. Every corner I turned revealed another secret he'd buried. But there was a new energy in the office now. People smiled again. They spoke freely. And for the first time in years, I walked into my father's old office, now mine, and sat down behind his desk, not with vengeance in my heart, but with purpose. A month after the fallout, I received a handwritten letter at the office. It was from Tyler. He wanted to meet. Every part of me said to ignore him, but something told me it wasn't over until I looked him in the eye one last time. We met at a small cafe in Brooklyn. He looked older, tired, beaten. "You ruined me," he said quietly. "You did that to yourself," I replied. He tried to justify it, how he felt overlooked by my father, how he had no choice, how it was just business. I let him speak. When he was done, I said, "You could have had everything, Tyler. You were family, but instead, you chose lies and control. I didn't destroy you. Your greed did." And with that, I stood up and left. Back at the office, I sat with my legal team. Tyler had been officially charged. Embezzlement, document forgery, fraud. It wasn't just about prison time. He'd been blacklisted from every major firm in the city. Some of my colleagues asked me if I felt satisfied. Strangely, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt resolved. That night, I visited my father's grave for the first time in a long while. "I did it, Dad," I whispered. "Not just for me. For everything you built, I hope I made you proud." The wind was cold, but I felt warm. For the first time, I knew peace. Under new leadership, the company began to thrive. We launched new ethical partnerships, restructured operations, and built a reputation for transparency, something that had been buried under Tyler's manipulation. Employees started speaking of our firm with pride again. I wasn't just my father's son anymore. I was the CEO who brought the company back from the brink. I implemented a new program to help young entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds in honor of my dad's early struggles. We called it the Whitaker Legacy Initiative. 1 year later, I received an award for ethical leadership in business. During the speech, I didn't talk about Tyler or the betrayal or the scandal. I talked about second chances, about listening, about silent strength. "Sometimes," I said, "revenge isn't about breaking someone down. It's about standing up quietly, steadily, and letting the truth do the talking." As the audience applauded, I looked up. In the back row, I imagined my father standing there, arms crossed, proud smile on his face, and I smiled back.